What happens if we don't seize this amazing delight? Trapped under your body, trapped under your love. If I can see your other eyes, what happens if the will has burned? If I'm no longer your inspiration, oh my heart, 'cause I choose you, baby. I choose you, baby. I choose you, baby. So I choose you, baby. Oh, what happens?
All right, everybody. I hope you guys are all doing very well. Let's see. Today is May the 18th, 2023. And we're going to talk about Melanie Pawlowski. Just some interesting facts and reporting her answers, and talk about this idea. Has she now set herself up to be charged in Arizona as co-conspirator, in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux? Let me make sure you guys can hear me. If you can hear me, can you put a 1, please? Yeah, I'm feeling pretty bad, Pam. I sure hope you guys can hear me. Okay, great. So you do. It sounds like it keeps connecting and disconnecting. It's okay. All right, very good. Well, welcome, and sorry for the slow start. Like I said, I am dealing with the flu, and this has been going on since last Sunday or Monday, and it's bad. So, hey, welcome, West Virginia. Yes, I'm from the Huntington area, Charleston and Huntington. So, all right. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, we do have an indictment for Lori Vallow in Arizona in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. And I believe that indictment, there's some misreporting on this, I think. They tried to say, I think it was the beginning of this week. It's hard for me to tell because I've been really sick. But I think maybe it was the end. It was right after the guilty verdict. Right after the guilty verdict, that I think Ashley Banfield said they had just gotten a new indictment, and that's not exactly accurate. That yes, there is an indictment, but I believe that came down about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago. So there are, even as they started the prosecution of Lori Vallow in Idaho, the courts in Arizona were already working this case. And so while we believe that Melanie Gibb was able to get, I think she got immunity. What's it called? Fact immunity? I think it's called fact immunity. She was able to get immunity in Idaho, but in fact, it does not appear that any level of immunity has been provided in Arizona at this point. So that is a completely different state, different cases. You've got the case of murder, actual murder of Charles Vallow. I believe that'll be a conspiracy to murder charge. And then the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. So those are two more. So I think Larry and Kay Woodcock, after the conviction, after the guilty verdict was read, they came out in front of the courthouse and they said in their speech, they had one down, three more to go. I think it confused Larry a little bit, but it is that the three cases are Chad Daybell for the murder of Tammy Daybell, and the conspiracy to commit murder. Well, no, it may be direct murder for JJ and Tylee too, because he was found there at the site. So got Chad Daybell on the murders of Tammy, Tylee, and JJ. And then you go to Arizona, and then you're back to Lori Vallow in the murder of Alex Cox, and Lori Vallow in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. And so I think there is something telling about the information that has been released by these prosecutors or police departments. Now, what do I mean? Well, here's what I mean. You got released Zulema's questioning when she came in and talked to the Gilbert police. They released that, correct? They also released the questioning of Jason Mao. And then after the fact, after Alex Cox is dead, they released the questioning of Alex, Tylee, and Lori. But how many other interrogations or questionings did they not release? Now, they released Serena, right? But she testified in court. But no one's released Melanie Pawlowski. Melanie Gibb has been released in terms of what's going on in Idaho. And so I think that it's very interesting, and it suggests that Melanie Pawlowski may be on the hot seat. She may be in trouble. I know that there is this strange recording the day after the attempt on Boudreaux's life, the shooting. It was such a strange interview, and I thought, well, maybe I'll show that and we'll talk about it. But here's why I elected not to. It's long. It's rambling. She says almost nothing, which is her pattern of talk. And the absolute most notable thing in the whole interview or statement, I think it was a statement, is that the cop springs on her. Oh, well, I'm here because, Brandon, someone shot at him, and she has no response. Like, there's nothing. There's no emotional, oh, really? Like, there's nothing. It's the most bizarre, detached, I think, sociopathic response I've ever seen. She just changes the subject. So it's a strange video, but it's much ado. Sorry, 1 minute. Much ado about nothing. And so, I decided I want to do this first, and then maybe we can go back and listen. So, is Melanie Boudreaux, aka Pawlowski, is it possible that she will become co-conspirator in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux along with Lori Vallow? So we also see video of Melanie outside of the grandparents' house yelling and angry and unwilling to have a rational conversation, because she wants her children. She says her children are inside the house of the grandparents and she's demanding to take them. The cops are very aggressive towards her and they're saying, well, you're not getting them and you're not going in that house. You're not having anything to do with them. And it's so eerie because the whole entire time, the camera, the body cam, is focused on a man in an SUV that brought Melanie to this location. And that man is Alex Cox. He's the one that drives her there. So she's being very forceful and she's refusing to take no for an answer. And she's lying. She keeps telling various lies in an attempt to manipulate the cops. And to the credit of the cops, they're not playing anymore. They know the deal. They know what's going on and they're done. And so, they're just not giving her an inch, and ultimately she ends up being arrested. You also have at the same time that this is going on, she shows up at the home of the Ewells, who are friends or were, they were good friends with Brandon Boudreaux, but also with Melanie before all of the insanity started. And so when Melanie shows up at their house and she's saying, a spirit told me, God told me that my children are in your house, that they're here with you. Now, this is all at the same time that she's also going over to the grandparents in the middle of the night and screaming and yelling and acting stupid. And so Brandon's friends are saying, no, Melanie, why would we have your children? They're not here. And so they invite her into the house so that, thinking once she sees that the kids are not there, that will calm her fears and then she'll be able to leave. And so she goes in, she sits down for a few minutes. It was very pressured. And then she gets up and she leaves. They go back outside. They have a few more exchanges. And she keeps demanding that Mr. Ewell contact Brandon, call him. And he's saying to her, I'm not getting involved, Melanie. I don't know what's going on with you guys, but it has nothing to do with us. And we don't have any idea where your children are. And then the wife, Mrs. Ewell, she then says, but how the hell did you find out where we even live, Melanie? Like, what are you doing here? How did you know that this was our address? How did you find us? Why would you find us? Right? And she said, oh, well, you're on Google. And so the lady, looks on Google and they don't show up on Google. And so she confronts Melanie. She says, not true. You can look on Google right now. We're not showing, our address is not coming up. So explain yourself. And what is in the background the whole time? A guy driving an SUV. And that guy is Alex Cox. Not only once she got in the car, they sat in the car and continued to watch the house as if they were conducting surveillance. Then they drove back and forth, around and around the neighborhood. And the Ewells actually called the police and they say, this is bizarre, man. Melanie is here and this is happening and it makes no sense. And there's some guy driving her around. She says it's her friend. Same thing she said at the grandparents' house. And then ultimately, finally, it's over. She leaves. So as I'm listening to these various videos and I'm looking at the timeline on these and I'm thinking, she was frantic. She seemed to be frantic. to get her hands back on her children. Now you think, well, that's not strange. Why would you think that's strange? Well, because when she moved out ready to go up to Rexburg, she threw their toys, their clothes, their bedding, everything. She just left it outside in the yard on the side of the road to be picked up for trash. She said she seemed to have no interest at all in getting them back. And she loads up and goes up to Rexburg, where Lori, Melanie, and Alex all have apartments right there together in the same apartment building next door to each other. And we're going to listen to this video. This is her new husband, Ian Pawlowski. When you ask them about their wedding and their marriage, what it was like to be divorced and then to meet one another and go through the courtship, Melanie tells this cute story about how it was finally time for her to meet his children. And that, that when she got out of the car, that the daughter looked at Ian and said, "Don't mess this up, Dad." So you're given this impression that this was this normal, regular courtship. You introduce your family, after you've known each other a few months or even a year. But then when you begin to pin Melanie down, you find out that when she leaves Arizona, just wipes her hand to the whole kit and caboodle. She leaves, she goes up to Rexburg. That's the first week in November. It's 1st of November. She moves in with her, or she moves into the same area with Lori. Ian lives right across the street, is what they say. I would like to know if he actually lived in the same apartment complex and was right across the driveway on another apartment building, but still the same complex. They all seem to be living together. So they claim they met on a dating app, that they live right across the street. They're meeting children. Don't blow this, Dad. And literally, from meeting him on the first week in November to the day they got married was 10 days. It was 10 days. And guess who Ian asked? Guess who Ian asked for Melanie's hand in marriage? Usually the guy will go to the father of the bride and say, I'd like to marry her. Right? Guess who Ian asked? Chad and Lori. 10 days, people. 10 days after meeting, Ian is living right there in the same area that Lori and Alex moved into. And they want us to believe that they were not part of this cult. Knowing what we know after Lori's trial. I said it then that I thought this was going on. I'm convinced of it now. I'm absolutely convinced that Chad and Lori were deciding who would be together, who would be married. They were hand-picking couples, and this was all buying into the delusion of the Church of Firstborns. You had to be a certain kind of Mormon to be accepted, right? And Melanie Pawlowski said that Natalie in March, that Natalie had been possessed by a demon. So Natalie, the wife of Ian Pawlowski, the mother of Ian Pawlowski's children, was a dark soul. Was Melanie setting up the case for another insurance payout? That Natalie would have insurance and she would meet an untimely death after castings, and they would have plenty of money from that? Between the insurance money for Brandon Boudreaux, perhaps her own children, that frantic effort to get those kids to the point that she got herself arrested. She made herself look like a fool in front of friends, always with Alex Cox with her. Was there some sort of occult date where the children had to die on certain days, and that's why she was so frantic trying to collect them? And ultimately naming Ian's wife, Natalie, as a dark, possessed demon. And she's a demon. She's a bad soul. They can pray for castings. We'll cast out that demon. We got to free her soul. We got to kill the body so that Natalie's soul will be released and she can go on to heaven or wherever. One has to be daft not to see the peculiarity for Melanie Boudreaux. She enjoys a 10-year-long marriage, 5 kids with Brandon, very happy, very lucrative. They've got plenty of money. They're comfortable. They're living a happy, normal suburb life, being normal, regular people. And they were LDS, regular people. And overnight, like a switch going off, she got crazy. And Melanie Gibb got crazy. And I'll ask this question again, Melanie Gibb. What the hell are you doing in Idaho? I'm sorry, Arizona, when your husband is in Utah? What is keeping you in Arizona when you've got a husband in Utah? Maybe it's a not so healthy organization, Melanie Gibb. So it does seem like a lot of this orienting around Arizona, but then they all move from across the country into Rexburg, where Rexburg is 95% LDS. I literally cannot find another town with that percentage of LDS, not even Salt Lake City. There is no other town that I've been able to find that is 95% LDS. Isn't that interesting? It's like a Mecca. It's like the modern day Zion. It's like if you get handpicked to be in the cult, then you move to Rexburg. And what did Heather Daybell say? She said that everybody in town was supporting Chad. They didn't believe it. And all the while, they're all running around talking about the prophet Chad, and JJ and Tylee are in his yard. What in the world is going on in Rexburg, Idaho? And what in the world is going on in the temple in Gilbert, Arizona? That is the truth. Now, I'm going to talk about Melanie Pawlowski's mother, Stacy Cope. I'm going to talk about her in a minute, but I want you to listen to this answer that she gives. Let me make sure this is ready to play. Yeah. I want you to listen to this answer that she gives about what happened to your mother. Now, Melanie's mother died when she was 31 years old. She died under highly suspicious circumstances. And that was that she was alone at home. The person there that was supposed to be taking care of her was Alex Cox. But Alex had left to go to a movie with his cousin. I believe, or maybe they were watching movies at the apartment or something, but he was having social time with one of his cousins. We know this now in 2023 because the cousin has come forward to tell her story. And she is tore up. She is one of these people. She has gotten out of LDS. She's immersed herself in therapy. She's working very hard to be a healthy, happy person after all that she experienced. And in her family of origin, there was a great deal of coercive control. The church got blamed for a lot of things. She doesn't blame, well, she does blame LDS a little bit, but it really, I think, after reading her story, listening to her videos and whatnot, it seems more like it was the family, the father that was very abusive and controlling, and the church was one of the tools at his disposal, right? So she has gotten away from all of it, and she's dedicated, working very hard to being healthy and happy. And so she comes forward with the real story of what happened when Stacy died. And she said that she was with Alex Cox, and that in the middle of the movie, he gets up, he says, I got to go check on Stacy. And the whole evening, he kept talking about how he's worried about her. He's worried about her. She didn't seem right. Didn't seem like things were right. Didn't seem right. Now, she's sick as a dog. She's on hospice care. He knows how sick she is, and he's using her money, her credit cards, to purchase things. And when the cousin says, well, you bought new golf clubs with her card, like, aren't you worried about that? And he makes some like flippant little comment like, well, she's not going to need them. She'll not need this money, or something like that, which is very sociopathic, or even sociopathic in nature, not to have an awareness of a basic right or wrong. But this whole group is like that. All of them have this problem that they don't seem to have any either awareness of moral poles of right and wrong. There's no like personal integrity, it doesn't seem like. They all seem to be very emotionally detached, not driven at all by empathy or connection, but driven most of all by, narcissistic need, right? So this cousin says he jumps up and he leaves in the middle of the movie. And when they get there, of course, Stacy's dead. Now, what's so incredibly curious about this, not only that Alex was acting very suspicious, but the whole family is in Hawaii while their daughter is dying. Is that crazy? The whole family, Barry, Janice, Lori, all the kids, they're all in Hawaii, living it up. And Stacy is dying. I don't know if it was anorexia. This group lies so much, it's really hard to get down to the nitty-gritty, to the details of what actually killed her. I think it's safe to say the cousin feels like perhaps Alex overdosed her on insulin, maybe. But nevertheless, listen to this. So she's on hospice. She's that sick. She's going to die. Barry and Janice, her parents, just go to Hawaii. They just take off. They're just going. They're partying in Hawaii. Stacy dies. And what do you think happened? What do you think happened? You think the family said, oh, that's terrible. That's so sad. We better get home and prepare for the funeral. We better go. And no, they finish out their vacation in Hawaii. They stay there in Hawaii for another 4 or 5 days before they get on a plane and come home. Damnedest thing I ever heard. Craziest thing I ever heard. So, again, you got to remember, Melanie is running around acting a fool while Alex is the chauffeur to her insanity, telling people that spirits have told her where her kids are and she's demanding to take them. That she meets a guy who happens to live right across from her, and from the time she meets him to the time that they're literally in Las Vegas saying I do is 10 days. 10 days. You really think that wasn't an arranged marriage? You got to be really short-sighted not to see that it's an arranged marriage. And I believe that Zulema and Alex Cox also was an arranged marriage. And I think Zulema wasn't happy about it. And that was Alex's, that was his payment for doing what Chad wanted him to do, kill the kids. So his payoff was, I'll give you a lady. And remember the 911 call. While Alex is on the bathroom floor and he's dying, the Zulema's son, 20-year-old, 21-year-old son, he says, my mom's boyfriend is on the floor. He's sick. He's dying. I don't want to give him CPR. I don't want to touch him. He's gross. Yes, my mom's boyfriend. Boyfriend? Zulema. You got married and you didn't tell your adult children? Wow, kind of sounds like Zulema wasn't expecting old Alex to stick around very long, right? I'm telling you, I believe in my heart that Arizona has enough evidence to arrest so many of these people. I think without a doubt, Melanie Pawlowski should be arrested and held on charges for the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. And I believe that Zulema should be arrested for the murder of Alex Cox. We hadn't gotten anybody arrested for the murder of Alex Cox. Oh, but it was a natural death. Yeah, like Tammy Daybell's natural death. So remember what I said about how Melanie talks and talks and talks and talks and doesn't say a damn thing? Listen when she's asked about her mom's death. Listen to how she changes the subject. She jumps. She's not going to give an answer. And this is after we're looking at multiple videos of her being questioned. This is her MO. If you're going to interview Melanie, you better limit her to simple sentence answers, and you better hold her feet to the fire and say, that's not what I asked. 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 This was the question. This was the question. This is because circular talk that's her. I think that's her MO. So take a listen and watch poor old Ian over here. I think he's fully in this whole cult thing. I do think that. But man, does he not look like a guy who's simply just given up? Who's just trapped?
Now, Melanie, were you born and raised in Arizona?
I wasn't. So I was born in Utah, but lived in Phoenix as a baby and then lived in California for a while. And then Seattle is where I spent a lot of time growing up.
And your mom, unfortunately, passed away when you were young, right?
Yeah, so my mom got really sick a couple years after having me. She almost died having me. She had a deep vein thrombosis, blood clot.
Oh, same thing that Alex Cox had, huh? Is that right, Melanie?
And the Cox side doesn't really have great genes. Like
That's so funny. That's just so hilarious how the Cox side all die of deep vein thrombosis or pulmonary embolism or
there's a lot of my grandpa's had cancer and
oh,
blood clots.
Oh,
and,
more blood clots. Gosh.
Initially, when we heard about, I believe my grandfather was told by the police that Alex, they had thought that he had a lung clot was the reason for his death initially. So that's what we thought this whole time, that, you know, it kind of runs in the family, and that makes sense. But I think my parents had a rough time when my mom got really sick with type 1 diabetes.
Why is she talking about? She's talking about everything. Nate's just asking about her mom dying. I think what's happening here is she's trying to concoct a lie. She's trying to, in her mind, she's trying to figure out how to say what happened without saying what happened. She's trying to figure out a way to clean it up and make it look like it was a perfectly normal death and that everybody behaved in a perfectly rational manner. Just like they're asked about their wedding, about when they got married. And, you know, Ian is just like, oh, well, you know, we met, we got married pretty fast. And she interrupts and she tells a story about, oh, his daughter said, don't blow it, Dad. So normalizing it, she knows it looks crazy. She knows it is crazy. But she finds a way to normalize it. And I think that's what she's trying to do here. We didn't know that at the time that this was first released. But we know it now in 2023 because now the cousin has come out and told the story of the week and the night that Stacy died and who was there and how it happened and what happened, what the family did, what their reaction was. And there was nothing normal about it, people. Nothing. This girl is a liar. This girl is a practiced, polished manipulator, gaslighter, liar. If the cops let this one slither out, I think she's worse than Lori. I don't think Lori's nearly as good at changing and manipulating the truth as this one. I really don't.
Also with gastroparesis, she couldn't have the ability to absorb nutrients, and she was in and out of seeing doctors and in and out of hospitals, and I think it was hard on my dad. I know there was some infidelity on his part, and they tried to work through things, and they just couldn't make it work. And I spent a lot of time in the Cox home. So Barry and Janice, my grandparents, they lived in California, and I lived with them for a while, and my mom was sick, and I remember my dad traveling a lot for his job, and my mom finally felt like she was healthy enough when we moved to Seattle, where my dad got a job there. And it was just me, my mom, and my dad. My mom couldn't have any more kids, and I was kind of their baby. And when I was 6, my dad I remember, that's about as far back as I can remember, is the night my dad took me, and he said we were going to go get gas, and we never came back. We left my mom there, and he turned the power off. He took all of her credit cards, took her planner, and just left her there. And she was really sick to the point she couldn't really take care of herself. And we hid out in a hotel for a couple months. And then from then on started a nasty custody battle between them. And, you know, when you're little, I just remember just being quiet, not really understanding what was going on. And I don't remember during the court process. I just remember not seeing my mom a lot. And she fought as much as she could. And I think she got so sick, ran out of money, and things just weren't, you know, just in her case. And I grew up with just my dad, and then later my stepmom when my dad got remarried. And I heard all manner of things about the Coxes, and my dad kind of cut off communication with them. And these were people I grew up with, and I knew they were good people, and I loved them.
Notice she still hadn't told you how her mom died. She's told you everything else, but not what happened when her mom died.
And it didn't feel right, a lot of the lies I was being told about them. But my mom later passed away when I was 9. Lori was the one that called and told me the news. She said, your mom's in a coma and she's probably not going to make it. And I remember that phone call, and I've always loved and trusted Lori. She's always been somebody that is just so much unconditional love on her.
Is that right?
No judgment, no drama.
You sure about that, Melanie?
Admire her so much. And I don't think I would have wanted to have that phone call by anybody else to have to give me that news.
Wow.
And I remember flying up with my dad, who took me to see my mom last time in hospice. She was out, and she didn't come out of her diabetic coma.
Well, that's strange. That's strange that she didn't come out of her diabetic coma, Melanie, because she was actually talking to Alex. So I don't know. Seems like either you're lying or somebody lied to you. Maybe you have to construct a lie to make it sound better.
I work for Loom Media, and I have a very special YouTube-only deal for you. Stick around and find out.
Most people, and so I would never really connect as much with Alex as I did with Adam. Or
Because Alex was such a good guy, right? All right. Now then, let me say, hold on. Got more information here. All right. Now then. So Stacy Cope, okay, her name is Stacy Lynn Cox Cope. She died May the 21st, 1998 in California. Now, although early on people were saying they thought that Lori had something to do with her death, in reality, it was probably Alex. And while she had been sick, and it does appear that she had anorexia. Now, let me say this, okay? This is crazy. Janice, Lori's mother, people that know her have said that she is very narcissistic, that she is highly focused on appearance, that women have a certain look, and that if you don't look a certain way, you're not worthy. You're not a worthwhile person. And so part of what a woman is supposed to look like, according to the mental health of Janice Cox, is you're supposed to be very, very thin, right? Well, at a dinner party where people were all sitting around the table eating together, and I don't remember if it was, I don't remember. I'm not going to say it because I don't remember. I got the impression that it must have been like Christmas or Thanksgiving, because they were having like a big meal and the whole family was all around the table. But I don't believe that was ever said. I think that was just like my thoughts on what it would have been like. But anyway, so she was taking the food. This is Janice, Lori's mother. She was taking the food, putting it in her mouth. She was chewing it up. But then when it was time to swallow, she was putting the chewed up food on her fork and putting it on the plate. And then she'd take another bite of fresh food, put it in her mouth, chew it up, but instead of swallowing it, put it on her plate. And this is how she ate her meal. So, so she didn't get any nutrition. She didn't eat anything. But, she went through the motions that she was eating. Is that bizarre? Now, so using the court documents by Melanie's father, Steve Cope, along with some of the, people coming forward, family members coming forward, different people coming forward, some information has come out that really gives you some real insight into just how sick this family was. Melanie Melanie Boudreaux's father got a restraining order against Stacy and the family. He claimed that Stacy was suicidal and that she believed that food was evil. Now, this goes along with the other story about how Janice would not swallow food. She just take a bite, chew it up, and then spit it out. Melanie was not allowed sugar or milk, and that she suffered as a child. She suffered low calcium levels. Stacy was so afraid of food that when Steve would go and buy groceries, she would return the groceries to the store. They said that when Stacy died, she weighed 76 pounds. Melanie was not allowed to go to school because other children would be like dirty, have germs and whatnot. Melanie was so affected by the condition of her mom that she would not like go in another room and play. She would always have to come back. This was when she was a baby, 4 years old. Always checking on her mom, making sure her mother was safe, making sure her mom was okay. The father of Melanie said that her mother's condition was as a result of the way she ate, the food problems, the anorexia. Also, she did not administer her insulin properly, and that all of this was all tied together. The gastroparesis and the anorexia and the diabetes, that it all kind of coalesced together to create this delusion that food was evil and that if she ate, it would kill her. Stacy would take Melanie's toys as a baby. She would take Melanie's toys and wash them in alcohol to get the germs off. She did not allow Melanie to go swimming, and she would never allow Melanie to go into a public bathroom. To go to the bathroom because of germs. She would prefer that Melanie soil her pants than go into a public bathroom. Stacy is said to have been irrational and out of control. That while she was at the Cox house with her mother and father, that she would have hours of screaming and yelling, kicking her legs, crying. Steve said that she was physically violent against him, although not ever violent against the baby Melanie. And Melanie, about the time she turned around 3, or no, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. She was about 5, but when she believed that she was a 3-year-old, she said that she was a boy named AJ or Alex. Isn't that crazy? She cut her hair short and she wore a hat all the time and called herself Alex or AJ. She believed that she was 3 years old and she would talk in a childlike voice. And when Melanie was 6 years old, she would wash her hands up to 30 times a day. She also refused to sleep alone. And Melanie soon began to fake illness that aligned with Stacy's supposed sicknesses. Barry and Janice claimed that Stacy had told them that she wanted to die. This is terrible. Listen, this is terrible, y'all. That Stacy wanted to die And they all agreed, the family agreed that it was Stacy's time to go. Is that why they all left? Is that why they all left and went to Hawaii and left Alex there with Stacy? Is that what happened? They did not put food into her feeding tube. Well, she refused a feeding tube. There was an IV, there was a way to get IV nutrients. That was removed. And so basically they just starved her to death. Excuse me, why haven't there been charges made? This is crazy. Not only was Melanie dissociating and acting out a 3-year-old boy named Alex, but she began cursing and swearing really bad when she was like 6, 7, 8 years old. Really aggressive, dressed completely like a boy, had no ability to get along with other kids at all. It is incredible that no one in law enforcement felt the need to do anything about this. But what do we hear? We do hear repeated themes, don't we? You're not going to convince me that Janice, at least, I don't think Summer, I really don't. I think Summer got out. I think Adam got out. I don't think they knew what was going on. But I think Janice was in on this whole thing with Lori believing she was an exalted being. Lori was the golden child, right? It is extremely disturbing, DB. When you start going back and really getting into this history, it just blows your mind. How do you not feed your child? They refused to put anything into her feeding tube, and they got on an airplane and all went to Hawaii. Alex says, "Oh, I've been worried about Stacy all day. I better go check on her." And oopsie, she's dead. So he calls and he says, "Hey, Mom, Stacy's dead." And they say, "Oh, okay, honey. Well, we'll be home next Tuesday." Crazy. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. It is the craziest story. But what is... mental illness is real. Okay, it's there all day long. And Lori Vallow's father is a schizophrenic. Okay, all day long. There's mental illness. There's problems. It's real. But you know what I think is so crazy? I think it is so crazy that law enforcement did not jump in on this whole thing that happened with Stacy. That's what crazy KRAYZ. It's just incredible. Yes, Blonde PT. These are family patterns that keep repeating themselves now through 2 generations. You got Janice chewing up food and spitting it out on a plate so she doesn't gain weight. And you got Lori dancing around in the middle of the night in the living room, claiming that she never has to eat again or she won't poop because she's exalted. It's so mind-blowing that no authorities have stepped in and said, there is something really bad happening in this family structure and everybody needs some help here. We need to step in, divide everybody up, get them away from each other so they're not feeding each other's delusions. And let's get this under control. Okay, I'm looking towards the authorities, right? But here's one for you. If you're LDS, why the hell didn't your church leadership step up? why didn't the church leadership step up and go, wow, things are really wrong and going on here. Let's get this all, tamped down a little bit. What's happening here? Let's get some mental treatment. This is not okay. Hilarious. Not only did they fail the Cox family, not only was the little girl, Melanie Cope, failed, not only was Stacy failed, but Charles Vallow was failed. He was pleading with the church. He was pleading with local police. He was pleading for someone to get his wife and put her into medical treatment. Now, I'm going to ask you guys this question. How likely do you think it is that multiple children, different generations, all of the children are having dissociative problems, they're having failure to thrive, the socialization is disrupted? How normal do you think that is? How often do you think that happens in a family where there's not abuse happening? Never. These are the sorts of problems. The hand washing, that's a control, that's an anxiety problem. That's a little girl that feels completely out of control. Someone is controlling her in every way, including her body. This hyper food control, there is something structurally within the family that has gone off the rails. And I think we all know what it is. So, the people in Arizona, the cops there, the church, you guys have mud on your face. You guys were the first line of defense. And you have mud on your face because none of you stepped up to help them. None of you. No one stepped up to help Tylee and JJ. No one stepped up to help Charles Vallow. Charles was sounding the alarm. And because Lori is been taught to be seductive and pleasant, you fell hook, line, and sinker for the whole, oh, I really want my lip gloss back. I got news for you, idiot police officers that bought into that. Grown women don't act that way, okay? Grown women don't get assaulted by their husband and have to collect the children in the middle of the night and go hide out in a hotel room and then bop around coyly in your office saying, I just want my lip gloss back. I just want my lip gloss back. It's not even reality. I can't even imagine what you were thinking. Have you ever been confronted with an abused woman before? If you're being abused and you have got to take your children under cover of night and go hide out in a hotel somewhere, you don't give a damn about lip gloss. You guys were being manipulated. The people of Arizona, you have an opportunity to fix this and make it right and stop it from happening again. Because right now you got Melanie Boudreaux out running around free as could be, having influence over more children. Does that life that this little girl grew up with, does this sound like someone that you want to just be comfortable letting her spend time with other kids? So I believe they've got to bring charges against Melanie Pawlowski, Melanie Boudreaux. They've got to do that. I feel it in my heart. They've got to. She knew things. She knew things that some of the others didn't know. Lori told her, it's all coming to a head this week. We have to be safe. We have to be someplace safe. Sorry about that. So I hope I've made my point today that this did not happen with Lori and Chad. That's not how this happened. For people to be able to be in a position where they are being influenced by something like your child is possessed, and in order to save their lives, we need to kill their bodies. There has to be something severely wrong with you. If you believe that, you've got a serious problem, and it makes you dangerous. This was not just Lori and Chad. There was a whole network in place, and they all fed one another's delusions. They all built up the confusion. And at the heart, this is a family that does have organic mental illness in it. She needs to be charged. Her running around demanding the children from the grandparents, claiming that spirits told her that the Ewells had her children. She's running around with a known murderer, Alex Cox, just comfortable as can be. And law enforcement is looking the other way. They're looking the other way. Meanwhile, she is in contact with children every day. It's just chilling. Listen, y'all, my medicine is starting to wear off, so I'm fixing to start all the crazy coughing again. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it. And I know, my voice sounds yucky. I apologize for that. But I wanted to try to put something out there because I've been sick a long time and I didn't do any videos or anything. So, yeah. So let's keep our fingers crossed that law enforcement in Arizona does not fail their future victims. Because if you don't start arresting these people and protecting the children that are in their lives, you could have more victims on your hand, Gilbert Police Department. You could have more victims on your hands. You better act this time. This is bigger than just Lori and Chad. I believe it. I mean, I can't even tell you how absolutely certain I am that there are more people that had this type of thought, and we don't have any way of knowing, but it is a real possibility that they might do a Chad and Lori Part 2 if they don't put a stop to it. Y'all have a wonderful day.